Okay, welcome. So this is another video on getting started with CubeIDE. And so in this particular video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be bringing up CubeIDE on the SICE Linux machines at Luddy. And so these are the machines that you'll find in the labs like 4010 or 4111. And these are this is the Ubuntu that is centrally managed. And so for those of you who might be having trouble getting it working on your machine while you're working on that problem sort of in the background, I know this is especially true for Mac users, you can go ahead and get up and running on the departmental Linux machines, and that'll give you a place to keep moving forward while you work on getting your installation going on your machine. I know that there have been some issues with getting CubeIDE up and running on the Mac especially. All right, so what I want to do here is I want to show you a few of the wrinkles. Now, CubeIDE is actually installed on all of these Linux machines. So it's installed centrally, and so when you log in, you will be able to access it. So I'll show you that here in just a second. But I want to point out is there are a couple of wrinkles you have to deal with. And really, this has to do with the size of your quoted space. The libraries that CubeIDE brings in are somewhat large. And so, and frankly, we don't want to store those in our backed up space, which is our home directory. We want to store those in some other space. And SICE provides a couple of different mechanisms for doing that. And I'm going to recommend you use one of those over the other. So I'm going to bring this over to our screen. So this is my home direct. This is my a Linux machine that is part of that managed system. This machine's called BAT, but you'll find that the machines in 4010 or 4111 will be named something, but the name doesn't really matter. So I'm going to bring up here a terminal window here, and so this is my home directory. Now, there are a couple of different large volume spaces where you can stick things. So your home directory is special in that for in a 90-day window, you can recover anything that is, say, lost or deleted or corrupted in this directory. So you can just put in a tech request within the department, within the school, and they'll fix whatever whatever has happened to your home directory. And it has happened to me. I've deleted something that I had not intended to delete, and they're able to restore it to whatever state that I say. If I say I deleted something 3 weeks ago and then overwrote it, they can go fish that version out for me if that is necessary. Most of those sorts of issues don't really happen for me because I use Git, and so I'm pretty diligent about that. But it happens. Every once in a while. You'll make a mistake and you'll delete something that's not a Git repository, and all of a sudden you've got problems. But there are two spaces for spaces that are not backed up. One of those is called no backup, and the other is called scratch, and they have different quota sizes, and you will have a slightly different quota than, say, I do. But nevertheless, it's quite a bit larger. No backup, for example, is quite a bit larger than whatever space that you might have on your system. Scratch, on the other hand, is unquoted, so it's quite large. But you have to understand that Scratch will get deleted periodically. They'll sweep Scratch, for files that have are over a couple weeks old, and they'll just delete them. So Scratch is really just that, Scratch. So it's something you're doing today that you don't want to keep. No backup is a little different. It is something that you're doing today, and you might want to keep it, and it will never get deleted by the sysadmins. But you have to understand that hard drives fail, even though these are RAID configuration sort of hard drive systems. So they don't fail very often, but it happens. They fail, and no backup means it's not backed up. So we need to go and create a no backup space. You don't just get it by default. You have to go and create it. And this is the way you do it. So you first need to, I am running, right now I'm running on the machine BAT. And so I want to be running on Silo to do this to create this no backup space. And again, no backup is where we're going to store these relatively large libraries that Cube needs that have basically the examples and the firmware that's necessary for our particular embedded processor, which is the STM32L432. So, okay, so let's go over to Silo. So I'm going to SSH over to Silo. I have my SSH keys set up so I don't have to type in my password, but know that if you have to, you probably have to type in your password and do all that. You can go look up online how to set up your keys. If you SSH around a lot, it can be handy to not have those. All right, so once I'm on Silo here, if I do ls, you'll notice I've got the exact same home directory, right? So all these machines use the central home directory. But now if I say make no backup, all one word. Oh, if I can type. Backup. Okay, if I type that, what it's going to do is it's going to pull up this little dialog, and it's going to ask me if I want to create this no backup space. And in your case, the answer will be yes. I've already created it, so I'm going to say no. But this is just basically a little blurb that's telling you, hey, this is not backed up, right? That's why it's named no backup. Believe it or not, that has been a point of confusion for some people as to whether this space is backed up. It is not. It is not backed up. So I'm going to say no. You will say yes, and it will create it, right? It'll make this space, and it will be called /nobackup/your username. So my username being behind bow. That's that's what mine is called. All right. So I'm going to say no. All right. So I'm going to go back to BAT. So I'm going to say exit. And so now I'm back on BAT. One thing I want to do here is I want to create a symlink to that no backup space. And so a symlink basically lets you make directories look like they're in a different place than they really are. And so this can be convenient because then you don't have to type in that full path. So I can make it look like I've got a no backup directory right in my home directory, and it's just a little cleaner. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say ln, that's how I create a symlink, -s, and I want the target directory, which will be no backup /behindbar, and then I'm going to type no backup, and that'll be the name of the directory in my directory here. And so if I do that, you'll notice I've got this aqua colored no backup. It looks like a directory. And so I see cd no backup. These are the files that I have in no backup, things that are, things like pie images and stuff like that I don't, this is stuff that I didn't necessarily create. I'm just holding it out there because it was useful at one time, but I'm not necessarily, I'm not ready to get rid of it, but I don't need it backed up. So, all right, so I'm going to create in here this STM32 cube directory, and I've already got that directory here. I'm going to go in, let me go ahead and just delete it, and I'll show you. STM32 cube. All right, so I'll make that directory, mkdir STM32 cube, and I'll go into that directory, and I'm going to make another directory called repository. All right, so anything I create on this particular in this particular directory, which is where I'm going to store these files, is going to get shoved off into this directory, and it's not going to be in my home directory. Because again, my home directory is tightly quoted, and so because it's backed up and it's got this sort of, very extensive backup process that it goes through. So we're going to try to leave the things that are big, and they're not things that we actually created. They're just things we downloaded. We'll try to throw those off into no backup. So, all right, so I'm going to cd back to my home directory. So now I've got no backup. And so I'm ready to fire up CubeIDE. And again, we want to do that because the very first project that we create will be for the L432. And what it's going to do is it's going to try to go out and grab those libraries and stick them somewhere. And we want to make sure that where it puts those is not in our home directory, just because our home directory is big. So let's fire up CubeIDE. So if I bring up this, and what I'm doing is I'm hitting the Windows key. If you're wondering, you know, in Ubuntu, I'm using GNOME, which you can choose whatever your whatever window manager you want. I think KDE and GNOME and Unity are all supported. I think we've got those as available window managers you can run. I'm running GNOME, and so when I hit the window key, it brings up this little tab and lets me do things like switch between my different screens, but also lets me switch between applications. And one of those things I can do is show all the applications, so I'll show them all. And again, if you're not running GNOME, this will look a little different, but hopefully you're familiar or can look up how to move around in Linux. If you use GNOME, it'll look just like this. So in this list of applications, there's this CubeIDE. So I'm going to click on that. And so it's going to bring up CubeIDE. And the first time it comes up, I'll warn you, it's going to be somewhat slow, because it's going to go out and it's going to go and try and find the packages. And so if I come over here and I do a file, new, I don't want to do that just yet. The first, so that would be my that would be kind of my go-to, or push this, start a new STM project. Let's not do that, because if you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to go to your default home directory. And so, it's going to try to throw it in, /u and your username. That's where everybody's home directory is on these machines. So I want to come up here and I want to change where it's going to stick the library so it doesn't just drop them in my home directory. So I'm going to come up here to Window, and I'm going to bring up Preferences. And I'm going to go over here to this STM32 Cube dialog. And down here where it says Firmware Updater, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to browse to this new directory that I created. And so I want to go to, let's see, I want to go to, oh, I'm not seeing what I'm looking for here. Let's go to Home. Oh, here's No Backup. Oh, those were old directories that I had played with. And so I'm going to go to Home, and then I will go to No Backup if I can find it here. Oh, I'm already in No Backup. So let's go to STM32 Cube and Repository, and I'll say Open. And so now I'm pointing at this repository directory that I just created. So I want to give it a place to go. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off this check and update firmware pack setting, because if I don't turn that off, then every time I boot, it's going to check. And so I want to just basically let's not have it do anything automatically. Let's force it when we want it. We'll force it. Otherwise, we don't want it to slow us up as we're coming into the application. So okay, so there we go. I've set up the updater stuff, and so I'm going to start a new STM32 project. And so it's initializing the target selector, because I went in and cleaned. I had done all this prior to doing this. Again, it may take a little bit of time on your, when you're doing it, depending on how busy the network is. So here you've got this. You've got this dialogue here that's just like the other videos if you've watched those. And I'm going to go to board selector, and I'm going to type in L432, and it gives me my Nucleo. And again, this is symmetric to, if you've done this already on Windows or you started it on Mac, you can go ahead and you follow along. So I'm going to call this L432 from Linux, if I can spell, and finish. All right. Yes. And so, yes. And so what it's going to do is it's going to basically build this UI, but when it tries to generate the code, it's not going to have the library. So it's downloading it. It's plopping it into No Backup right now, and this can take a little bit of time. It's not horrible, but it takes, you know, it takes unzipping those files may take a little bit of time. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop the video and just let this percolate, let it finish up. But it takes a while to unzip. There's a lot of data. It's gigabytes of data that's in this zip file. So let it finish. I'll come back and I'll finish this video so you don't have to watch it download.